Hello again. Finally, we have episode 2 of season 3 of Tales from the Script. It's been a long time coming, I know. I recorded this some time back, but I am just now getting to uploading. I had hoped to get all the episodes recorded before beginning the upload so that I can give you weekly episodes. Um, that's not going to happen. I have 3 more interviews to do. However, I want to introduce you to Joseph Gitau. He's a fellow writer, and we have some other things in common. We met on the NaNoWriMo site, and he has some interesting insights. The podcast might not be the best quality. I am such an amateur, but I'm learning every day and growing. And I promise the quality does get better as we go along. But as you know, I've been doing podcast solo, so interviewing someone comes with its own challenges, like not having the same internet connection, blah blah blah, etc. etc. I won't bore you with the details. But the episode itself is really worth your time, whether you're a writer or a reader, or you're just passing by, or you just like the sound of my voice. Whatever it is, please go through the whole episode. Okay? Yeah, enjoy. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us about
Mhm.
your writing process, or anything really that you want us to know as an introduction to yourself.
So, uh, funny enough, I didn't
Mm,
start writing because was I always wanted to be a writer.
mm-hmm.
I started writing because I actually wanted to save up money to become a musician. So writing has was always like second fiddle to like music because I always wanted to become a performer. So I actually started writing as I started as a poet. So I was writing a lot of poetry, and then I got into blogging. And then a friend introduced me to Nano, and that's how I got into long form writing. So yeah,
So
it's
you wanted to write songs,
yes.
or did you like want to like what was the connection between the writing and the music career?
So I wanted to be a singer, and I
Mm-hmm.
think with a lot of singers nowadays, to have a bit of edge in the industry, it also helps to become a singer. So I was like, oh, it might help to have something back as well, so that I could work on like writing lyrics. So that's how that connection between uh, music and writing came in. And then I was also like, I can also monetize my writing because what I'm writing currently, it's like I don't have to just write and sit on it. I can also try more, and that could also fund like my music career. So yeah,
Okay. So do you want to tell us how that's going?
very slowly.
Your plan, your
So
plan. How's your plan going?
my plan is that it's going decently well. So uh, I've picked up a lot of tricks as well from being a poet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I've been able to work out like song structures, like what goes where, like rhyming and all that, making it sound aesthetically pleasing. Because in
Yeah,
today's day, everything is aesthetically pleasing.
yeah.
Um, so it's definitely that has definitely worked out. And then also uh now getting like the longer stories, I've also learned like how to tell a story because sometimes a song is not just necessarily or does the musician sound? But they also a lot of people are also interested in like the kind of story your song is telling, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's party life, what's that story to tell? And that's a figuring out like how to tell a story in a way that is entertaining and but also relatable has also been something I've been learning along the way.
Okay. Okay. And how long have you been in this process? When did it start? When did you sit down and say, I want to sing, and the way to do that is to write? When was that? How long has it been?
So it's been, I want to say, 8 years.
8
8 years. I
years.
started writing with 8 years because I started my blog, I think, 8 to 10 years ago, around that time. Yeah. So it's been about 8 to 10 years.
And your blog, what was that for? Was it also for poetry, or was it like commercial? What was the blog about?
So it initially started as a poetry, just a way to put my poetry. But I hadn't found out the world of Wattpad, so
Yeah.
I kind of used my as a way to like put my poetry out there, and
Mm-hmm.
then I sort of transformed into like a mental health blog because I was diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar. So I kind of talked about experiences on this like myself and like how it affects the creative process on my blog as well.
Okay, that's very interesting. I've found that like you're like the second person I've interviewed
Hmm.
who is bipolar and is also a writer.
Oh,
Do you think there's
oh
some
wow.
correlation? What has your
Uh,
experience been as a
yes,
bipolar person?
I do think there's a bit of a correlation, and not just with bipolar, but I think also with neurodivergence,
Mm-hmm.
because we tend to drift towards the creative arts, things
Mm-hmm.
that allow us to ourselves in ways that are not necessarily bound by quote unquote rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because like a 9 to 5, it's like you have to be here at a certain time, you have to do your job in a certain way.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you know, if you don't do that, you can either lose pay or you can even get fired.
Yeah.
But when you look at like creative arts, whether it be music, it be writing, acting, painting, yes, there are general norms that you have to follow. Because like writing a story, you can't just like throw words onto a page and expect it and it be like a story. Like
Yeah.
there has to be there has to be some rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
But outside of rhyme and reason, you can basically do whatever you want. If you kill your entire main cast in like within the span of a chapter, you can do that. If you want to introduce a new villain, like off the cuff, you can do that. It's basically whatever your creativity can do, then you can put it on your you can do
You can
it.
put it on the
And
page. Yeah.
yeah, and I think also with a lot of with bipolar, I think we tend to use writing as a sense of outlet to regulate emotions, because we tend to, because of like the stigmatization surrounding bipolar, we don't necessarily have a natural way to let us out without being painted in a negative light. So instead of physically letting it out, we'd rather let that dysregulation out on the page. We can take it out on our characters rather than on someone in real life. it I think is how it would work.
Okay. So, I want to know whether did you come to these conclusions on your own, or were you working with a therapist, or is it just like life experience has taught you this?
I'd say life experience because when I started writing, it was more, I was just like, I just need to get things off my chest. So I started writing, and then I'll share it with a friend, and then they were like, "Oh, why don't you just put this out? This is good. This is like good for you because I tend to bottle things up. So like, especially like when I'm hurting or like when I feel like I've let someone down, instead of voicing my worries, I tend to bottle that up.
Mm-hmm.
So writing tends to give me that outlet that I generally wouldn't have had in any other situation.
Okay, okay. And it does it work? Is it like, are you finding it helpful, or is it like, are they, how do I put it? Like synergy? Is it like synergy? Like you find like this is helping this and this is helping this.
Yeah, it's definitely helped because now instead of always bottling up, I can always be like, if I have a frustration, I can always just write it down, whether it be like a poet in a poem, or even just like a story. Like if I have a frustration, I can always be like, let me incorporate this into a story and get it off my chest. So it does synergize well with that. And then I've also realized that with a lot of since I've started writing, I've tended to have less outbursts, less emotional dysregulation. And I think it also has helped me understand myself as a person because one thing I do a lot is I put a lot of myself in my characters. So I tend to see like, how do I view myself? Something I wouldn't have done before if I hadn't started writing.
That's so interesting. So every single character you write is based on some aspect of your personality.
Yes.
I read somewhere that Diana Gabaldon said the same thing. She said
Hmm.
when you're criticizing a certain character, like you're talking to
Yeah.
her and you're like, I really hate Jamie. He's so this and this and that. She's like, I want to remind you that Jamie is part of me. Like, so you're telling me basically that this part of me is
Yeah.
horrendous or abhorrent. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's different for me. I think I've just
Hmm.
not really delved into where do these characters come from? Is it me?
Yeah.
I feel like usually like there's one character who is me or
Yeah.
based on some aspect of me, and the
Yeah.
others are like protagonists or antagonists of that
Yeah.
character. But I've
Yeah.
never really delved deep and said, okay, this is the part of me that is this or that. So
Yeah.
it's like you're more in touch with yourself because you write and
Yeah.
you know who you are better
Yeah.
because of writing. But
Yeah.
now that it's so personal, I mean, how do you feel about publishing it? Like when it's going out there into the world and other people are gonna read it and they're gonna have their opinions on this character and probably tell you about those opinions and it's like, I really hate this.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
It's definitely scary because it's like every time I put a book in the world, I put a story into the world, I'm essentially putting a part of myself out there. Even though I
Yeah.
write under a pen,
Mm-hmm.
it's like every time I see a review, sometimes or every time I see, oh, I don't like this character, or oh, I love that character. it's like, okay, is it that because it's that character, or is it because it's me? So one thing I've had to learn as I generally put a lot of myself into different characters is separating myself from my characters. Because at the end of the day, when people are seeing a lot of these tropes, like when they see a certain character, it's not, they don't know where that character has been, well, has come from. They don't know how an author has created that character.
Yeah.
Uh, but so they're not hating what the vision of that the author had of that character. More so, they're hating the character that they're seeing on the pages.
And probably they're hating something
Mm,
that it resonates with them because they recognize a bit of themselves in a character, because people
yeah,
usually say that if you hate a character, it's because it's a part of yourself that you don't like.
yes.
So I don't know
And
how
you
true that
actually,
is.
it's there's definitely a lot of truth to that. Because even if you look at um, a lot of like hated villains, not even the hated, like not even the hated villain, like the loved villains,
Mm-hmm.
it's usually uh, a part of yourself that you would not show
Mm-hmm.
if weren't if you didn't have to live by societal expectations. Because if you take someone like a Lex Luthor from Superman,
Mm,
people resonate with Lex Luthor not because that's who they are
mm. But
sometimes,
it's
but
who they wish they could be.
exactly. And sometimes they hate that they can't be like that, or they hate that that person is confident enough to live like that, but
Yeah.
they are not.
That's interesting. That's interesting because the villain that I really relate to is Thanos. So
Yeah,
I need to sit with myself and find out why.
yeah. So you need, because when we look at a lot of these villains, because like even Thanos is a very fascinating situation, because a lot of people are, when you look at the conversation surrounding Thanos, you tend to fall into two camps. People who are like, even in if I was in Thanos' situation, I would want to be like, oh yeah, let's get rid of half of humanity.
Yeah.
And then the other
There's
people
the
are like,
Thanos was right people and the Thanos was wrong people.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
So when in that discussion, it tends to explain like what fascinates you about the character. Because like
Yeah.
for me, I personally, Thanos, I love his motivation because he's like, people have wronged not only just me but each other for so long. Like
Yeah.
we need to know
And
the human,
they're destroying the universe.
yeah. So they need to be taken down a peg. So he's like,
Yeah.
the major forces in the universe are not going to take care of them. Let me take things into my own hand.
Yeah.
And you see that with, and that's something we see with like a lot of
Villains.
terrorists. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that mentality of they something needs to be done. Nobody's doing it, so I might as well do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know why never correlated Thanos to terrorists, but it's actually the
Yeah.
same and the same like deep fanatic belief
Yes.
in this is the only way
Hmm.
to fix it. There's no other way to
Yeah.
fix it. This is the only way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really
'Cause
interesting.
Yeah, because if you look at it, everything, whether you're a thief, a terrorist, or a villain, everything you do is essentially to make a statement. Because unlike heroes who are doing it, mm, who are either out of duty or they're doing it because they have the obligation, they obligated to,
Yeah,
or they feel like they
because I have this
they
power, I have to
yeah,
stop it
I might
because
let
I'm
me
I'm
do
the
this.
only one who can do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But when you go to a lot of villains, it's more of I am here to make a stand. If like Joker, he's everything he does is to make a statement. Lex Luthor, he's there to make a statement. Doc Ock makes is there to make a statement. Every villain that we've ever come across is always a is always there to make a statement. We can even take it further, and if you go like the Mean Girl trope in like movies and shows like Gossip Girl and Mean Girls,
Hmm.
the reason they are relatable as they identify them as villains is because they're constantly making statements. Generally, heroes do not make statements, but villains generally do.
Hmm. That's deep. Now, I wanted to ask you something, but it slipped my mind. Oh, okay. So, going towards the whole concept of heroes and villains and storytelling.
Mhm.
I know that
Yeah.
you want to write games,
Yes.
and I just want to ask you that within the context of
Mhm.
Kenyan literary society, right?
Yeah.
How is
Yeah.
how easy is it, or how hard is it to actually produce this type of story and put it out in the world and possibly make a profit from it? And what do you think is the
Uh,
future of the medium?
I definitely, I'll actually start with the last one. I think the future is very bright. And the reason I think it's very bright is because even if you look at a lot of the writers we interact with on a day-to-day basis, the stories are there. The
Yeah.
ideas are there. The
Mm-hmm.
concepts, the foundation for entertaining and relatable stories are
Is there?
there.
Mm-hmm. So what is
Problem-
not there? What is not there?
I think it is I think the biggest issue is actually twofold, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing is the amount of risk traditional publishers in Kenya are willing to take. And the second one is the ability for independent authors to permeate both an international and a local market. Um, I'll start with the second one because I do publish. I've actually published quite a few books,
Mm-hmm.
uh, both both through Amazon KDP and Draft to Digital.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the constant issues I've been running into
Mm-hmm.
is it's very easy for international markets to get my books, but when it comes to Kenyan markets, we don't have a base. We don't
The
have an easy way,
infrastructure. The
yes, to
infrastructure is not there.
yeah. Because if you look at like say like on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
uh, people in the US can buy a book and they can get it relatively easily. People in the UK can get it. People in Japan can get it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when it gets to Africa, we have
There's
first of
an
all we don't
Amazon South Africa, I think.
No, there's not, because I remember the closest, especially for like physical copies,
Mm-hmm.
the closest printer I think is
Mm.
in Europe,
So
if I remember.
you have to get your books from Amazon UK.
Yes,
Oh, I thought there was a South Africa. I don't know why. I think because I saw people buying spare
Mhm.
from Amazon and they're saying they were getting it from South Africa, but I've never actually tried. But I agree with you in that infrastructure is what's holding us back because
Yes,
we don't actually have an industry.
yes.
We just have
And
authors who
no,
are hustling to sell
yeah. So
books.
yeah, we have authors. So we have authors who definitely creativity, who have the creativity. We have the stories. We have the storytelling ability to rival like the Stephen Kings, the George R. R. Martin, the J.K. Rowlings. We
Yeah,
have the problem is the people who have the infrastructure to actually put a lot of these stories on the map are not interested in those specific stories. They're not interested in the fantasies. They're not interested in the sci-fis. They're not interested in the romances. They're not
very
interested.
true. Very true. Because I think we are still many publishers are still living in the past and
Mhm.
they're still very much like an African story. And that
Yes.
African story has very specific elements of um what can I say? It's basically the same story over and over again.
And it's like they want the next Gugiwa Thiong'o.
Yes,
They
yes,
want they want that kind of a story. They want a story where they can say, "This is 100% Kenyan. This is
yeah,
our story." But at the end of the day, it also, by telling that type of a story, you're not only limiting who can interact with that story, you're also limiting what authors can do. Because not
yes,
everyone is interested in writing that type of a story.
yes, and it's not everyone's experience.
Yes.
So, especially these days, so you're stuck so you find a lot of authors writing the same story just so that they can get into the traditional avenues of publishing.
Yeah. That it's what we call in the gaming, in like the gaming sphere, we're essentially trying to min max becoming an author. We're trying to meta meta game the writing process. We're trying to figure out what will make all the money,
Yeah,
and because and that's what a lot of publishing houses are interested in. They're trying to get what gives you all the money with none of the risk. Because if you take like, I made this joke both on Twitter and in the writing group. Um, some of us tend to spawn our character, like a lot of us fantasy writers tend to spawn our characters into the medieval European fiefdom number 3A397, because why not? It's this, like
the world has
you can
already
tell, like
been built. The
exactly,
world
like
has already been built. So
yeah,
you just
and
slot in your characters.
yeah, and I don't, and it's not against it because we don't have the creativity. As much as I joke, it's like, oh, we have this freaking creative, genre in fantasy, yet somehow we all end up in the same world with the same characters, with the same set of,
Story.
yeah. And it's, I don't fully like blame the authors. I think it's more that because that's what like the agents and the publishing houses are looking for, we have been boxed into that story.
Very true. That's yeah. So now that we are literally running out of time,
Yeah.
uh last thing that you want to say.
Well, last thing I want to say is don't be afraid to take a risk. Whatever your genre is, people will always, if you have a good story to tell, there are
Mm-hmm.
people who are willing to.
To read it.
So yeah, so don't be afraid to take that risk.
Yeah, that's 100%. 100%. You're going to find your readers.
Yeah.
There's one question you didn't answer, and that was the gaming question.
Uh, about the
You have
stories.
like, yes, you have like 8 minutes, I think. So knock yourself out.
I think with gaming, the thing that differentiates writing story for gaming that writing for a traditional book is
Yeah.
that sometimes thinking about different outcomes for the same question. Because whether you have a specific route you want to take, like in a novel, then like, if a player takes, instead of doing like fire magic, they decide to use a sword, that might change an entire storyline, and you have to accommodate for that.
Okay. How do you find what are the challenges you find in writing in that sphere, in this atmosphere, in this literary infrastructure that we don't have? Is it like, do you just do it like for fun? Is it for fun, or is there like a plan?
There definitely is a plan. At least for me, there is a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and as it is, my plan is like 10% Kenyan market, 90% international market. Because even if you look at like my social media followers, a
Mm,
lot of them from the UK, the US, Canada, Finland, Australia, and then you have like the occasional Kenya, Uganda, South Africa.
yeah, very
So
occasional, very occasional.
very occasional. So for me, it's how do I leverage that, my current community, my current audience, and how do I make them interested enough in the stories I'm telling, to
Mm,
want to to read the story, to buy the book.
yeah,
If I want to turn it to a show, how do I make them want to watch that show? If I turn it into a game, how do I make them want to play that game?
yeah.
That's kind of like the big question, and that's for me, what I realized is that when you're creating your story, you need to kind of plan if your story is going to be turned into like a TV show. Like, who would you want to play this character? What kind of a person do you want to play that character? Like, what aspects of your story do you want to be taken one for one? What would you be willing to be able to you know let them play fast and loose with,
Yeah.
essentially.
Mm, okay. So it's been really interesting to speak with you, and I
Same.
want to thank you for your time after
Thank you for
so,
having
so many mishaps and your
I,
patience with me.
and your patient with me as well. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, and hopefully, this conversation opens up bigger conversations.
Yeah,
Some
definitely.
some really interesting points came up, and I hope they spark talk.
Mhm, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and I'll bid you good night.
Good night, and thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
And that's an episode wrap for Joseph Gitau. Thank you very much for watching, and good night.